If you're excited about Zohran Mandani, I get it. A lot of people are. But I really don't share that excitement. Not for him, and I've really kind of grown to detest the term democratic socialist. Here's the truth: democratic socialism is a worthless label. At best, it's a watered down, feel good phrase. At its worst, it's a shield used by career liberals who don't understand or care about what socialism actually is. Ironically, I'm not the only one who thinks so. Ask any conservative foaming at the mouth about cultural Marxists, and they'll agree, even if for all the wrong reasons. Most Americans who use or label themselves as democratic socialists can't tell you a thing about Marx, class struggle, or even about what socialism demands. Maybe they skimmed the Communist Manifesto in college. They've never read Rosa Luxemburg or Trotsky or any of the original thinkers of socialism, even if they were wrong or I personally disagree with their ideals. What they like is having this label that allows them to stay within the confines of the box while acting like they're outside of it. For this video, I'm going to focus on three public figures who wear this label proudly, and in my opinion, they're doing a lot of harm by doing so. The three people we'll talk about are Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Mandani himself. Starting with Bernie Sanders, I can't lie, I was a big fan at first. In 2016, I was doing my first stint in college and fully on board. I even campaigned for him in my small little town, debating people, going door to door, sometimes getting totally smoked in those debates, but that's not really the issue here. Bernie brought the term democratic socialism to the national stage, and personally, as someone who didn't really know a lot about socialism but knew he was somewhat on the left, I really connected with it. It was cool having someone in the mainstream media talk about universal healthcare, something I care about very greatly, or free education, something as a now two-term graduate student I also care about very greatly. Bernie promised that if he was elected president, he'd mobilize the people and push for policies Americans actually wanted. Then what happened? He was screwed over in both 2016 and 2020. I mean, no one's debating that. But both times after he lost, he just kind of gave up. I mean, let's be real here. Bernie doesn't need to be the president to organize mass movements. He's shown, even recently, that he can draw massive crowds. Look at the current Stop the Oligarchy tour. But during the most critical moments of three presidential administrations, Trump, Biden, and Trump, he stuck to the party line. In 2016, the Democrats would tell you that the most important thing was stopping Trump. In 2020, the Democrats would tell you that the most important thing was keeping Biden in office. Bernie didn't rally us in the streets when Biden shredded the climate bill that he and AOC and everyone else during that legislative process created. He didn't call on his million supporters to strike, protest, or march when railroad workers were denied the right to strike. Although, to be clear, he didn't vote against them striking either. So, I mean, we can't be too mad about that, right? Bernie Sanders became exactly what we didn't want him to be: a loyal Democrat with no leverage. I mean, here's some things that we can talk about with Bernie, since we really haven't talked about it before. Some of my criticism about him as a person outside of his time as a senator. Bernie and his wife own at least 3 homes. All of them are at least $1 million or above, or a couple $100,000, in Vermont, Washington, D.C., and lakefront property in North Hero. His wife's time at Burlington College has drawn a lot of scrutiny. She secured a $10 million loan in 2010 by allegedly overstating donor pledges, which later contributed to the college closing under crushing debt. An FBI investigation followed, though it concluded without charges in 2018. A lot of people in the investigation stated that she may have not been able to get that loan had it not been for the influence of her husband. So Bernie Sanders, a socialist hero for the people? I don't think so. AOC is just as bad, if not worse, in my opinion. Actually, I can probably go ahead and say she's way worse. AOC proudly calls herself a democratic socialist, but does nothing to back that up. She voted against the railroad strike, She takes big money donations, and she's cozy with the party establishment. She tells us that a progressive president can do so much even without Congress, which is just absurd. No president can override Congress. That's basic civics. I mean, look at how successful Donald Trump's first term was, not very, versus his current term when he's got Congress strongly behind him. She's parading around with Bernie like they're still the future of the left, but the truth is, she is a reformist liberal. She's clearly, in my personal opinion, eyeing a presidential run in 2028, and she'll get corporate backing because she's shown she'll play the game they want her to play. And worst of all, she stood on a stage and said Kamala Harris was working harder than anyone to bring peace to Gaza. That's not just naive, that's a straight up lie. AOC is not a socialist, democratic, or otherwise. She's a marketing campaign, a careerist focused on what she personally can do for herself. She's not a movement. She's a campaign for the career of AOC. Mamdani, I respect him. He's called what's happening in Gaza a genocide, which is what it is. He said New York should not belong to billionaires, but to the people. He mobilized the people to get as far as he's gotten. And it's really cool to see this in America's most capitalist city. But let's not jump to conclusions about how successful he'll be. Richard Wolff has done this, and as much as I like listening to Richard Wolff on certain things, I really disagree, and I think he's being a bit naive and a bit too excited. I truly believe that if he becomes mayor, which he has a big fight ahead of him, he's going to disappoint. Kshama Savant recently told Chris Hedges, Mamdani is excited to work with the governor of New York, someone who opposes everything he stands for. He's never faced serial pushback like Savant, who endured recall campaigns and resistance constantly during her time on the city council of Seattle, and he's praised figures who have gotten into office and abandoned their ideals, like the mayor of Philadelphia. These are valid criticisms. I mean, he was a member of the New York City government for a while, and he never faced any serious pushback. Now, you could argue that's because he didn't really make too much of a splash, but that's also a problem. Why hasn't he already been making a splash? And it's exciting to see someone with his views. And once again, there's nothing more brave, in my opinion, than standing on a Democrat primary stage in a city like New York and saying that you won't go to Israel, you'll stay here in New York to work for New Yorkers. But where does he really stand? I mean, Norman Finkelstein and Chris Hedges both said, you can't back down on your language. You can't make concessions like Jeremy Corbyn did during the controversy about him being anti-Semitic, something that was disproven almost immediately, but he made concessions and they ate him up for it. And Mamdani is already making concessions. He's dropping the globalized intifada when it got uncomfortable, saying that he'll move away from it. Democratic socialism is just an empty label. It's used by liberals who want the aesthetics of revolution without any of the risk, who want to say that they're working for people like you and me while continuing to do the same things that they've been doing forever. This doesn't mean that people like you or me or some young people or people you know who are becoming to accept the term democratic socialist are the problem. It just means that we need to educate people on what these terms really mean and what it really means to be a socialist and what it really means to be fighting for the people. In fact, I would say that the idea that Americans are even warming up to a term like socialism after nearly a century of Cold War propaganda, this is a modicum of progress. But politicians who are riding this wave aren't helping. They're co-opting it. If we want real change, we have to stop mistaking branding for ideology. The time for empty slogans is over. You are not going to find any true change through the electoral process. You're not going to find any meaningful change in a mayoral race in New York. Is it a good sign for things to come? Is it a good sign that people are finally mobilizing in certain parts of the country for things that actually matter? Absolutely. But the only way we're ever going to get real, meaningful, or substantial change is if we start working together and we change the system, not reforming it, but just getting rid of it and taking it over with an actual socialist movement. As always, the first link in the description will be for the United States Campaign for Palestinian Rights, where you can donate to help Palestinians who are struggling every single day for the genocide in Gaza, as well as I've recently started a Substack. I posted one of my most successful academic papers there. Please check that out and read. It's free to read, but if you want to subscribe, you can actually subscribe as well. Thank you, and we will see you next time.